I also have a brief shameless plug. I've got a meetup on Saturday, May 1st, this very Saturday, on interactive fiction. And if you have questions about that and you want to talk about interactive fiction with me on Saturday, I invite you to come get one of my cards and I'll talk to you about it. Okay, so what are multiple choice games? Well, they're multiple choice games. I think the most common multiple choice game most people have encountered, sort of a choose your own adventure book. Has anybody here not read a choose your own adventure book? One, two? Has everybody else read a choose your own adventure book?
Can you define it?
So the choose your own adventure books say across the top, choose your own adventure. And in the book, you will turn to a particular page, and the page will describe something that happens in the second person, something that's happening to you. And at the end of the page, it will say, if you want to open the door, turn to page 17. And if you want to leave the house, turn to page 60. And so the book will branch from page to page. You don't read it from beginning to end, but in a non-linear fashion throughout the book. I'm seeing a lot of nodding of heads, so I'm presuming most of you at least are familiar with the idea of a Choose Your Own Adventure book. You can just imagine a Choose Your Own Adventure computer game, just the same thing. You click on options and they go to different places. I gave a little example one. I didn't want to code up a whole one in PowerPoint, but you're at London Heathrow. The spoiler meetup is in 3 days, but the government has declared a no-fly zone while Eya Fieta Yurtu is erupting. You can wait at the airport. You can wait at the airport and try to catch a standby flight. You can catch a train to Paris, or you could scramble to set up a teleconference. And you might choose just one of these, option 2. If you chose option 2, we might ask you another question. This question doesn't decide what you do, but why you chose the choice that you made. Why are you going to Paris? Well, I'm going to Paris for fun. Or, I'm going to Paris to return to San Francisco as quickly as possible. Suppose that's what you chose. All right, well, we've got new options for you. We've got a crazy itinerary in which you catch a bus to Frankfurt, a plane from Frankfurt to Istanbul, from Istanbul to Dubai, from Dubai to Beijing, and then finally back to San Francisco. This is a characteristic flight plan I've heard of people trapped in London. In fact, someone I know did this. You'll arrive on time at SFO, but only 3 hours to spare. Any delays, and you'll miss the meetup. And it will cost you $8,000. So what do? Do you take the flight? Do you just try to set up a teleconference from Paris? Or do you give up and have a nice vacation in Paris? The book or the game can go on from here. Multiple choice options after multiple choice options as you choose things that are appropriate for you, and you decide how the story will go. And they're pretty cool. I think they're very interesting. They tend to have a problem, though, which is that they often are very short. And this diagram is a diagram of the pages of the very first Choose Your Own Adventure book, Cave of Time, by Edward Packard. That white dot in the center is the starting point. And there are 2 ways to get out of the starting point, and then 2 ways to get out of each of those. And then you can see a sort of plot of the various directions you can go. And the colored dots are endings, with the red dots being a horrible death, dark orange dots being acceptable, but really mostly terrible ending. But you're not dead. And then they go increasing in brightness of color until you get to the light blue dots. And light blue dots are quite pleasant as endings. But you'll notice the vast majority of these endings are death. In fact, most people, as they play a Choose Your Own Adventure game, die. Over and over again. I think it's the normal experience of reading a Choose Your Own Adventure book. And the paths are necessarily short. I think the longest path you can see here is maybe 8 choices long. That's an 8-page book. I mean, the book is, 120 pages, but you're going to read 8 pages of that book on a normal first playthrough. And that means that you miss most of the book. Especially if you only read the book once, almost all of the book was wasted on you because you only read 8 pages of it. And you got to an ending, then you had to stop. For this reason, I think most people don't write them very often because they think, oh my gosh, if I want to make a game that's half an hour long, that's going to have 20 choices in it, or 60 choices in it, I'm going to have to write an encyclopedia. It's going to have to be huge. I mean, suppose there's even just like 50 words per page. That's not very many words. And suppose you've got 4 options on each page. Well, 4 options, you would raise that to the 6th power if you want to have a 6th choice game. And that's 4,096 pages. 204,000 words. I mean, that's like 4 novels if you're writing like the NaNoWriMo novel, which is a short novel, sort of novella, but it's 4 novels! That's a lot of writing. And if you wanted to have a half-hour game, where, in our game, in Choice of Games, we publish a game called Choice of the Dragon. It has 139 choices. And if we wrote it in pure branching style, that would mean 4 raised to the 139th power. And that book is impossible to write. As you can see on the page here, 5 octillion pages. No one could ever write a book like this. And so most people, once they realize what the branching problem means, they give up. They stop. There is a solution to this problem. And the spreading of the solution to this problem is going to make more people write more multiple choice games. The solution to the problem is to write your game in vignettes. The idea is that you're going to start and you're going to have the branching options, and they'll have some more branching options. But all of those branching options will merge together. And then you move on to the next vignette, or the next episode. Each one of those will have some branching options and some branching options, but all of those will merge together again for the next episode and the next vignette. So, yes, you are losing some of the playthrough each time you play it, but you're guaranteed to get a certain minimum length out of the game. You're not just going to be like, yeah, I played it, I finished it in 5 minutes. You're going to get something like half an hour of reading out of this. And that's a good sign. Now, the problem with that is that that means that your choices early on can't be that meaningful. You know, if I make like a left or right, it doesn't matter. I'm going to end up in episode 2 no matter what I chose. So the way to address that is by having your choices modify the player or the world around the player. In a book, you can just say turn to a page, but in a computer, you can update values in the model. You can change values of a variable. You can increase or decrease your stats in a role-playing game. You can make yourself stronger if you go left, or smarter if you go right. In the middle, you might be making choices between good or evil, or you might be associating yourself with one character, let's say Cirrus or Achenar if you played Myst. You know, the two brothers who are trapped in books and trying to escape. Which one do you like better? You can make decisions about which one you will associate yourself with more closely. And that means that later options might be denied to you. If you befriended Achenar early, you can't do options later in the story. And that means that certain endings might be unavailable to you. That's how you make a long, vignette-based story meaningful. So, you can write them. You can write them of meaningful length, and you can do a lot with them. And I think some traditional games are starting to realize the importance of multiple choice games, and in particular, how easy they are to write and play. Some of the most popular games today are rather excessively using multiple choice games. Most notoriously are sort of the option between good and evil, which is very popular in a lot of modern console games that you play on an Xbox or a PlayStation. This one is BioShock, where there's characters, have absorbed certain supernatural power. You can choose whether to take that power from them and kill them, or rescue from the supernatural power that is within them. You get to choose between whether you're going good or evil, and you can make that choice several times throughout the story. And it's a very visceral, even violent choice in some cases. And that makes it very meaningful in a lot of ways. You know, people look at these children and they say, I can't hurt that child, but I need her pluses. So it's a difficult decision. But that's just the easiest choice, I think. As we move on, you start to see stuff like Mass Effect. Mass Effect is very traditional to have dialogue with other characters in a game be multiple choice. So I can say, oh, was there nothing useful? Or this was pointless, to say, you know, to sort of insult the person you're talking to. They have a wheel allowing you to choose which of the multiple choice options you want to pursue. And the position of options on the wheel help to inform what your later options might be like. There's a lot more. Fable 2 allows you to choose, you know, very viscerally and visually on your character, whether you're becoming more good, and you grow little angel wings, or more evil, where you lose your angel wings. And there's several others. I don't want to get into the details of them because we're low on time. But there's a lot of these games making ample use of multiple choice today, and I think that's going to grow in the future. But in particular, I think where we're going to see multiple choice games be very popular is in social games. Social games, widely regarded, are going to be the future. We're all going to be playing with each other, but how are we going to do it? Well, one natural way to just approach a multiple choice game socially is to have the players vote for what option is going to happen. They could be voting together, or even splitting the story into multiple worlds, where if you decided that you wanted to go left, you're in the shard, you're in the group of players who decided to go left, and I will tell that story to you. If you want to go right, though, I can put you into a different shard, a different separate story where I can tell that story to you. Or maybe you are voting. And the nice thing about voting is it makes you want to invite your friends to vote. You can say, I really want the story to go left, and you want the story to go left too. Come vote for left with me, and we'll make the story go my way. I think a deeper opportunity is with some of the more now traditionalized social games. I think the most popular and certainly the most profitable social game currently around is Farmville. How many of you played Farmville or seen Farmville?